All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back. It is Raising Up Sons with LG and Big T. Again, we're here and we're trying to become better dads so that our sons can become better men. And man, another week. Taylor, how's it going?
Going good, man. Fall is here. Fall sports are in session. School's in session. And Colorado, like, the days are hot, but the evenings are cool now. What's it like in
We are
Indiana?
just barely getting to like that time of year. So we've been in like this heat wave of like 96 with a heat index of like 104. And then like literally 24 hours ago, it broke of like it went from 96 that afternoon to like 68 that night. And it was kind of awesome. Like a storm hit and then it cooled off. And so it's been kind of beautiful, man. Like, daytime highs in the 70s and starting to see fall peeking its head around the corner. So I wouldn't say summer's over. Like we still got some
Yeah.
sweaty days ahead of us, but it's starting to be some cool nights. And I can see like there are fewer pool days ahead and more bonfires ahead, if that makes more sense. And
Love bonfires and flannel shirts.
yeah, I'm not sad about it. Like I love summertime and all that comes with it. And so that is like my peak season of the year. But I love me a good bonfire, man, and just being able to sit outside, get the fire pit going, and just enjoying the outdoors that way. So I don't hate it. So yeah, man,
Mm-mm.
it's fun. It's fun. We're getting there. Starting to see it. Football season around the corner. Can't
Oh,
wait to go
yeah.
to a football
Buckeyes,
game.
man. Can't wait to watch those boys.
The Buckeyes. I forget that you're an Ohio State fan. That's one of my least favorite things about you.
It's
Um,
amazing.
I do love college football. Can't wait for that stuff to get going. And yeah, it's all the things outdoors. So our boys, we love like all the water stuff and sprinklers, and we've done plenty of it, and hosing each other down. But we also just love like just being outside, and sometimes that's
Mm-hmm.
hard when it's 150 degrees. Like at a certain point, you need it to cool off a little bit so you can be out there and play and just do the thing and not just be miserably hot. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah, man, fall's
Yeah,
fall's
and it's
awesome.
fire season, and all boys love fire, I feel like.
Oh, for sure. Not just boys. Like I don't like. I just love being around a fire. It's mesmerizing. You can just watch it. I love the smell of it. I love just sitting there. Like it's one of my favorite things in the world. And my boys are already
Mhm.
obsessed. Like
Oh,
when we
yeah.
turn on the fire pit, because I'm not quite manly enough. We don't always build a fire. We just have a gas fire pit. So sometimes we just turn that on, and you can burn sticks on top of
Same.
it, and it's awesome. And it's
Oh,
like a
yeah.
cheat code, man. It's so easy. So someday I'll take my boys and teach them how to build an actual fire. We can do that. But I like to, getting the fire going, and they're all about it. Mac gets my wife Mac. She gets a little bit nervous, like they shouldn't be in fire yet, and they're catching sticks on fire, and But I love it too. So there's a little bit
What
of
a
pyro
girl.
inside of me.
You are a pyro. Before we go any further, I don't think we've told the pyro story yet. You got to tell the story.
Yeah, I don't know if we have. So yeah, I actually do have a little pyro in me. Like I remember my freshman year of college, and maybe I don't know if we've told this story, but my freshman year of college, me and some friends were playing. We're on our dorm floor, Cincinnati Bible College, RIP, and we made a blowtorch out of like an aerosol can. So I don't know. It was like it wasn't hairspray. It was like I don't know what it was. But it was flammable, and that made it fun. And so we took that, and I'm not. Was not smart. Obviously, we got in trouble for it. But like, if you take a lighter and an aerosol can, you can make a blowtorch. And so we did that within our dorms, and we're shooting like flames down the hallway. And like, we should have saw this coming. But the fire alarm goes off, and it triggered all these sensors, and fire trucks show up, and we had to evacuate the building, and it was kind of a disaster. So that was my intro to freshman year, where I was like, am I getting kicked out of Bible college on like
Did
week
you get in
2?
big trouble for that?
We did. In retrospect, I don't know that we were actually in big trouble, or if they just wanted to scare us a lot. But the effect was done. They scared us enough that we didn't make any more blowtorches or fires inside the building. So yeah, we learned our lesson. No more fires.
Oh,
At least
yeah.
not inside. Outside, lots of fires. Inside, no more. And that's a good lesson if you're listening out there. That for raising up sons, no fires inside the building. I would kill my boys if they did that.
Oh,
And I
my
know, and
gosh.
I know Taylor. Like I can already see it. Like they're gonna do some just stupid stuff in the future,
Mhm.
and I'll have to remember just how dumb I was at some point because it's
Oh
just in
yeah.
us that boys just do stupid things. And that's kind of the point of this episode is that it's the
Yeah.
job of dads to not squash out that fire, but to teach them to harness it in a way that can maybe someday sort of be useful. And
And it's
so
a tough thing, man. It is a
it,
tough thing because
it's
boys will turn anything into weapons, even
mm.
hairspray or whatever it was that you had.
Yeah, an aerosol can like turned into an explosive. Like we were so dumb. But we see it, like I see it in my boys now already that we go outside and our backyard, there's like, we've got our trees and stuff back there. And so there's sticks in the yard. And I don't know about your boys, but mine just innately turned those sticks into weapons. It's like
Hmm.
I didn't teach them that a stick should be a sword or a gun or a pine cone was a grenade. It was like just hardwired into who they were. Like, did you guys experience that?
Oh yeah, with the boys growing up, everything was a machine gun, a sword, whatever it is. And so, they were watching a lot of Ninja Turtles growing up.
Mm,
And then I
timeless.
showed them Predator probably at an earlier age than I should have with Arnold. And then things started turning into guns. They were fighting and blowing things up. And it was awesome, and now they're just, they'll grab a stick and it's always something, whether it's a baseball bat or they're just hitting each other with it. It
Yeah, and
always
so
turns into something.
it always turns into something. And so they're like, they want to be the good guy, and whatever reason, like dad always has to be the bad guy. And so, Ninja Turtle is still alive and well. And so if they've got a stick, then I have to be, the shredder or something. If they've got,
Hmm.
if it's a lightsaber, then I have to be, Darth Vader. Like it's
Oh yeah.
always dad's the bad guy. You have to be the beast. You have to be the bad guy, the monster, like all those things. And I love not being the bad guy, but I love that they always want to be the good guy or to fight for
Hmm.
good, or but it's just in them that they want to fight a battle.
Yep.
And I don't know where that comes from, but it feels like it really is something that's hardwired within them. And I think like as dads, it's our job to like kind of harness that
Yep.
and use it for good and teach them how to use that for good in their own lives. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
do you remember a book? It was very popular back in the day. It's by John Eldredge. It's called Wild at Heart. You remember that?
Oh yeah. I think I read that book again,
Yeah,
probably
you
like
did.
2 years ago.
Oh, you
And
reread it.
so, yeah, I reread it because I was, I'm like, all right, how do I help my boys, grow up to be adventurous and those things. And so it's been 2 years, so I barely remember it.
Yeah, and I'll go on and say, like, in modern podcasts, like today, like this is a very popular book about what 10, maybe even 20 years ago. I don't know. We're so old now.
Hmm.
Like this book came out and it was very popular. Everyone read it, and it was like what all the churches were about. And then it kind of got a bad rap after that. And I think it kind of came with this wave of like toxic masculinity and
Yep.
Braveheart's the worst, and like those sort of like images and the chauvinistic men, like we kind of put all that stuff like in the same pile and burned it up. Like you can't touch that anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go ahead and say that, like, man, I think there were some really good things within that. I think he touched on some gold that is still really, really good. So if you look into that book, it kind of breaks itself down into three different sections. The one, every man needs a battle to fight.
Hmm.
Two, an adventure to live, and three, a beauty to rescue. And you can hear it even in that third one of like, man, the whole rom com and Prince, showing up to rescue the helpless woman, and that's not what it is, but it is like that we need that story to live out. It's why we all
Hmm.
still love rom coms, even if you don't want to admit it,
Yeah. And
right?
this is why Braveheart is the best. It covers all those things. How dare people put Braveheart down? William Wallace is the best.
You cannot cancel Braveheart. I refuse to let that happen.
No.
But I think those things still call to something deep within us, and so
Hmm.
sure, there's an unhealthy side to those things. I'm granting you like those are out there that maybe some of that's not healthy or the best or whatever you want to pull out of it. But like, I do think if you look in the Bible, there's still a call to something sort of wild in that.
Hmm.
That's in human nature and is specifically, I think, in the heart of men. And you see it in my just reading plan right now. We're going through the story of Nehemiah. And if you read Nehemiah, it's all about him learning about the way that his people like their homeland's been destroyed and where they came from, like your hometown has been like messed up, and
Mhm.
Nehemiah kind of feels that. And so when he hears that things aren't going well for his people and for his home, he wants to go and do something about it. So he goes back to kind of rebuild the wall and put things back in order. And as he does that, people are not happy about it. And so there's enemies that are coming and people that want to stop them from doing this. And I love in Nehemiah 4, 15 through 18, it says, when these enemies come, it says, when our enemies heard that we knew of their plans and that God had frustrated them, we all returned to our work on the wall. But from then on, only half of my men worked while the other half stood guard with spears, shields, bows, and coats of mail. And the leaders stationed themselves behind the people of Judah who were building the wall. And the laborers, I love this part. It says the laborers, the ones who were working on their wall, they did their work with one hand supporting the load, like doing their work, and the other hand holding a weapon. And all the builders had a sword belted to their side. And I just look at that and man, I think that is so cool and such a picture
Mhm.
of like what men ultimately want to be a part of. That something
Oh,
in
yeah.
you wants to build something that's significant and defend something that you love. And so they've got one hand on their hammer and like going to work, and the other hand on their sword, ready to defend like the people that matter to them. And I think like you read that and something in me like stirs up, and I'm like, that's it. That's like what's in my boys that turns a stick into a lightsaber. That's like
Mhm.
what's in them that turns a pine cone into a grenade. Not that I want them blowing things up, but like I want them to figure out how to build something that matters with their life and defend something that matters to them in their lives as well. And I
Oh,
love
for
that.
sure. Yeah. I mean, just hearing that story again, just like a little reminder, man, it gets me ready to build a wall with a hammer and a sword. It gets you pumped up.
Right?
Now, when you think about guys, like I can think about men these days, and I'm sure it was like that then too, but it's like, man, I know quite a few guys who are ready to do that. And I also know quite a few guys who are like, you won't catch me, working or doing those things. Like, what do you think? Like, do you think it was like that back in Nehemiah's day? Or is like, there's some guys that are like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably a little bit different. Like we live in a different culture than they
Yeah.
did, and so at that time, it was a culture that went to war. It was a culture where when people came to fight your community, like everybody picked up a sword, everybody picked up a
Mm-hmm.
weapon, and they went after it. You built your home, you defended your family, and it was a violent time. I think today it looks different. That like when people
Mm-hmm.
come to attack your family, it's not with swords and with guns. A lot of times it's with ideas and it's with different thoughts and different worldviews. But I think at the same time, like the same fight still remains. That I want to
Oh
be
yeah.
able to like for them to be able to defend ideas with better ideas, for them to defend like bad worldviews with better worldviews, to defend
Mm-hmm.
lies with truth. Like I want to equip them to be able to do that. So maybe they don't have a sword in their hand, but I want to teach them how to use the word of God. That's how he
Mm-hmm.
equates it. That like you look at the armor of God, it's another illustration how the Bible kind of represents like this desire within us that you wear these things. You put on the belt of truth and the helmet of salvation and the sword of the spirit, like all these things that like this is what God has equipped you with to go to war. And so
Yep.
yeah, man, I think it looks a little bit different today than it did back then. But the same nature and the same call is still in that. Don't you think?
Yep. Oh yeah. No, that's perfect. And I think too, when you follow Jesus, it's like you are stepping into that. When Jesus says, "Follow me," you're stepping into a life of adventure. Where life probably is going to be harder. Like He says it. When you
Mhm.
follow me, like you're going to be persecuted and people are going to be against you, and it's going to be hard. One of my favorite stories when I think about that too is the famous story of Jesus walking on water, and then Peter steps off the boat, to do the same. And so I think, in that moment, he is stepping into the water. He's got all the faith in the world.
Mm.
And then when he does that, it's like he's taking action. He's stepping into this adventure. He doesn't know what's going to happen, and then he falls in. But it's like, no matter what the outcome is, are we willing, to go on that adventure? Are we willing to take that first step,
Mhm.
into following him? Man, and in that adventure, it's like we have written down. It says an adventure gives identity and purpose, and I
Mhm.
think that is such an amazing thing for us to teach our boys about what that is like following Jesus and how important that is.
I love that, man. And I think it's a good way to put it. Of like, it's not always about like, we don't want our kids to grow up to be violent, right? Like, that's not the
Mhm.
call to adventure that I'm talking about. But I do want them to learn how to give up um, their comfort for something that matters more. And
Yep.
so, a willingness to step out of the boat to whatever God's calling them to, and willingness to step out of like what's easy to something that's hard because there's something better on the other end of it. Like that's that thing inside of you that stirs up that like, yeah, I love that. And that's I
Mhm.
think it's why like we fall in love with stories. Like whether it's you think of whatever story growing up or even, even as an adult that you love, like I love like I'm reading right now, I'm going back through the story of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. And like, I mean,
Nerd alert.
it, it, I, yeah, like go on and call it out, man. That it is what it is. But like, there's something in us that like loves that. Like, there's a gospel narrative in all of these
Mhm.
things. It's like, yeah, to go from the comfort of where you grew up and what you know, to something that's like mythical and big and life changing and opportunity. It makes you about something bigger than yourself.
Yep.
I mean, all of those stories, however nerdy they are just a reflection of the gospel.
Mhm.
Whatever one you want to take, like they're all just a reflection of that. And so I
Yep.
think it just looks at something like God's like He's put this inside of you, and we
Yep.
spend our life searching for it. And so while I think we want to again, like as adults, like or as dads, especially like harness the good side of that, there are unhealthy ways that we look for it. And so if we don't find healthy outlets for that, of like how to
Mhm.
chase that down, how to step out of comfort, how to go after something difficult, then we find unhealthy ways to do it. And we see it in culture all the time.
Oh
And
yeah.
so when you think about that, like what are some of the unhealthy outlets of like, if we don't find good ways for our boys to be adventurous, whether that's like, I mean, the cliche things of going camping or playing sports or
Yep.
just being rough and tumble and like wrestling around, like those can be good things, but like there's unhealthy ways we find that as well. It's like, what do you think those are?
Yeah, and so I think a big one right now that we're facing, with my middle school boys and all their friends and all that are video games.
Mm,
And so it's just one of those things where if they're not getting that healthy outlet, then they're gonna, find something, that seems like a quick and easy fix because they have that innate thing in them where they want that
right.
adventure, where they want that action. And so
And that
um
community, right? That same thing of like doing
yeah,
it alongside
that
other people.
community. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's why I think Minecraft is it Minecraft? Minecraft or
I don't know.
Roblox? They're all the same to me, but I think it's Roblox where it's like they've got this community where they're talking with they're talking with all their friends, they're taking on these different challenges. But the thing is it's like there's no real risk, there's no real reward. The
Mm,
actual consequence and victory, it's all fake. And
mm,
so it is different when you're online, but it's also fun, because there's not that real challenge. There's not that
right.
real risk. So,
Yeah, man, and I can see that, like, because I mean, they're trying to create a world where you get that outlet, but it's not the
mhm.
same, right? It's like so
Mhm.
you're trying to go to war, and that's I mean, that's all these video games. Like, there's
Oh yeah.
a quest you're on, or like a battle you have to fight, and
Mhm.
things you have to do. Like, there's a task at hand, which feels like that's what I'm looking for. Like, that's what we all want. But the difference is in like a video game world, when you die or when someone else dies or when there's a fight or when something happens or you betray like your team or whatever it is, it's like, well, there's no real consequence to that.
Yep.
Like you don't actually feel the pain. You don't actually
Yep.
feel like the connection that's cut off because of that. Like you don't get that. And so you don't learn the same lesson from it that you do in real life. And I think that's
Mhm.
what I mean by like trying to learn to like harness that and what it means. Like so when you even in like playing sports, like when you go to battle with like your team, and you have the same goal in mind, and you're working for it, and you're sweating together, and you're practicing together, and you're going out there together. Like the way that you work with your teammates, there's a risk and a reward. If you're
Mhm.
selfish in the way that you play the game, then there's a social consequence to that, right?
Yep.
Like that people don't want to play with you anymore. You don't get the ball. You don't get to take your shot anymore. Like there's a consequence to that. When you go to like, I even think like with my boys, I think there's a very healthy, and there's tons of studies on this about like the benefits of like rough and tumble play of dads
Mhm.
wrestling with their kids and, learning how to be physical together. That's a good thing. Like when,
Mhm.
when boys learn to be like, I think violence actually teaches them gentleness.
Mhm.
It seems counterintuitive, but it's actually true because like when you wrestle with your boys and like you're bigger than them, I'm bigger than them, you're a lot bigger than them, right?
Mhm.
But like when you wrestle with them and you're on the ground and doing stuff and you're tickling, like you're in control because you're an adult and you know how to use your body and you know like how you can throw them around without hurting them, and that's a good thing. They still have to learn that. And
Yep.
so when they're wrestling around and they're swinging their limbs around and they hit you, and you've experienced this, I know that I have, of like when they're flailing and you catch a left hook from like a 4-year-old and it
Oh,
hurts.
yeah.
And dude, like, they catch you in the nose and your eyes water and you're like, oh, like you got me. And they have to look there and you can see it in their face, like, oh, I hurt dad.
Yeah.
And like they're shocked by it. Like I didn't know that that was capable. And it's healthy. They have to
Yep.
learn that the bigger they get, like, yeah, your body is capable of hurting other people. If you
Mhm.
can hurt dad, you can hurt your brother, you can hurt your mom, like you can hurt other people, and you have to learn how to control that. And
Yep.
so I think for them, the only way they really learn that lesson is in that rough and tumble play. And so early on with littles, like it's in that wrestling match and getting on the floor, and it's so important for them. It's why they crave it. I think
Mhm.
dads crave it too, is because that's a good thing for them. As they get older, that changes. They're getting more in control and need more organized outlets for where that can happen. I think that's where sports can be a really healthy thing, and that's more the role. Like
For
that's where your
sure.
boys are at now. It's like they for sure still love to wrestle and get physical and all that
Yep.
stuff, but like it's more now they've harnessed some skills that they know how to use their bodies, so they're getting more like organized ways to use that, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's super important. And at that younger those younger stages, like where your boys are at too, I think it's important for wrestling because then they can also feel like the strength of dad and they
Yeah.
know, how and there's a security in there that they're like, "Oh my gosh, like my dad can lift this house over his head if he wanted to." And
I
so
hope
it's
they really
like
believe
they
that.
have that safety and that net and security. But it is so true where it's like they think, dad can beat up anybody. And
Hmm.
so well, my boys do now. They're like they know that I've never been in a fight. I've never, had to like I've I've never done anything like that before.
Same.
But but when it comes to that like a lot of this that I'm doing with my boys comes from that John Tyson book that we mentioned a lot, Intentional
Mhm.
Father. And so that's why, every year I'm taking the boys out on solo camping trip. I call it man camp where we take a gun and we, have target practice. We find a big piece of wood and we got to cut it in half with an axe.
Mm.
Talking about, sex and girls and sports and, all the things, going on a hard hike, all these things that just kind of test your strength and your stamina and these things and all the like the conversations about Jesus and all these things. And
Mhm.
one of my favorite trips that I took was and I still have to do this with Jack, but it's when Eli it's when he first went into middle school. And so it was this milestone moment, going into middle school, becoming a teenager, all these things. And when we went to LA, one of my friends had a Rams, some two Rams tickets. And so she gave them to us. We got to use them. But we were going through all these homeless camps. We were trying to find our way through LA on our own, and I had never been there before. It was the first time I had to use an Uber, all these things. And so I'm trying to figure out things. Eli's trying to figure out things, but it was fun to go on this adventure together where
Mm.
neither one of us really knew, what is going to happen in this moment. But like it kind of pushed us to the limit together, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
And
man,
so
just learning how to
I would
navigate
recommend
that.
that for sure. Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love
it
that,
was
man.
fun.
Yeah. Just the ability to go on an adventure with your kid and figure it
Yep.
out. Like, man, you and me together, we can like learn how to do this.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, it
it's the
was
stuff,
awesome.
man. And that's why this is so important. Like, listen, you don't
Mhm.
have to be a dad that knows how to get an Uber to go into a
No.
city and just tackle it with your kid and figure it out, right? Like, that's why this is so important. And I think like we see this, like, that's why today, the number one predictor of like young men that grow up to be violent is growing up in a
Mhm.
home without a dad. And so when you don't
Yeah.
have a dad in the home, your chances of being incarcerated, getting arrested, committing a violent crime, like they go up astronomically. And that's why,
Mhm.
man, it's so important that we're just there. Like, not the ones that
Mhm.
know how to do everything or that you have to be a manly man, or you just gotta be present and intentional and
Mhm.
show up and be there for them. And it's in the small
Mhm.
wrestling matches, it's in the, the road trips and the adventures into the city, and just, the things that you tackle together that teach them how to grow up and to be a man, to control who they
Mhm.
are, to control what they do. Their actions have consequences. Like, what an important lesson to learn. And so all that's in there. And you made fun
Yeah.
of me for one nerd book that I'm reading right now, but one of my all-time favorites. It's a Christian cliche, but The Chronicles of Narnia. It's a classic by C.S. Lewis. If you've not read these with your kids, man, they're so good. And it's
Mhm.
I mean, the gospel clarity is so good. It's almost cheesy, but man, it's like gold. And so going through them as adults been really good. I'm starting to like tell these stories with my boys. And there's a line in there in The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where these kids are ventured into Narnia. It's this fictional land, but there's this character Aslan who's like the Christ figure, and he's the king, the lion, who is like king over all of Narnia, and they're trying to figure out who he is. And so they ask a very innocent question of this, Mr. Beaver, a citizen of the kingdom. They're like, listen, who is Aslan, like this lion? Like, is he safe? And the Mr. Beaver, he laughs and he says, "Of course he isn't safe, but he's good." And man, I
Mhm.
love that. I've actually got that quote tattooed on my arm. Like, he's not safe, but he's good. I mean, I think that is so much like such a good picture of who God is. Of like, is he safe? No, he's not safe. He's going to call you into all sorts of things, and life is going to be full of trials, and you should expect them, and you'll get your heart broken, and all these different things. But golly, it's so good. And life with him
Mhm.
is so good, and he is so good, and the nature of him that I think he captures in that, like the nature of God that's in that. I think that same thing is in the image of all of his children that he put in us. We were made in the image of God. We were made not to be safe, but to be good. And to
Mhm.
me, that is why it is so important that dads specifically embrace this with their boys. That we teach them that are little boys safe? Heck no, little boys are not safe. But with an intentional father, they can learn to be good. And so,
Mhm.
man, if you guys are out there and you're listening, man, I hope you're doing that. And I would love to hear from you on just the things that you're doing to teach them how to not be safe in a good way. And so, yeah, Taylor, you got anything else?
No, like I think just to add on to that, the books, the Chronicles of Narnia, man, I remember both boys, they'd be laying in bed, I'd be reading them, we got through I think almost all the books reading them while they're falling asleep. It is a great thing, to do. And so, we'd be talking about them throughout the day, all those things, but I think ultimately, when we think about this whole thing of what we're talking about tonight, is just the perfect example is Jesus,
Mm.
and just how he took the ultimate risk, leaving heaven, entering danger, dying for us. And so, we don't have to look any further than Jesus, who laid it all out for us.
It's the
And
gospel,
so
right?
I think, yeah, that's the entire gospel right there, and the model to follow. And so I think as long as we're pointing our boys to that, man, that's the best thing we can do.
Love it. Hey, so share with us, what are ways that you're doing this, things you and your boys are experiencing together, lessons you're teaching them, and the ways that you're doing it. And we would love, like all of these things, we would love to do it alongside you and with some other dads. So
Definitely.
keep at it. Give us a follow on at Raising Up Sons. You can find us on Instagram. And yeah, it's fun being with you guys tonight.
All right, keep being big daddies out there.